One of the Coen brothers takes on Shakespeare. Here we have an adaptation of Macbeth. Is this movie any good? Will you like it? Let's talk about what I think about this coming up next. This tragedy of Macbeth is directed by Joel Cohen. His brother Ethan Coen, longtime partner, is not working with him anymore, at least for this movie. This movie was made during the coronavirus pandemic, comes out January of 2022, and man, it is sparse and lonely. The movie stars Denzel Washington as Lord Macbeth. Frances McDormand plays Lady Macbeth. You have a nice cast of characters here. Brendan Gleeson's in this movie briefly. And with the Coens, working with Carter Burwell with music, working with the set designers, the cinematographer, everything set for a pretty good movie, and that's definitely what you're going to get here. Since Macbeth is a familiar story, I'm not going to go over it, but as you probably know, in film history, Macbeth has been a popular choice. Orson Welles, Roman Polanski, for example. Joel Coen knows his movie history, and this movie does pay homage to a number of directors or visual styles. I think Orson Welles is definitely here in at least a few shots. Some grandiose, over-the-top shots, oblique angles, great looking set design, cinematography here. And so if you want to just study photography, cinematography, this one is for you. But I want to praise the sound design. This was my favorite aspect of this movie. I think the sound designers did a wonderful job of the sparse, echoey sounds in this. I had my Sony headphones on. It was a delight to hear this movie and just hear the effects and the voices. Wonderful stuff going on in the sound design overall. Presentation-wise, you have a 4:3 ratio with rounded corners, not blunted edge corners as would be normal. This is not a box. It's a rounded edge. And of course, you have the black and white as well. Everything was filmed on the soundstage, which all that made me feel a little bit like I was watching, or this movie is paying a bit of an homage to maybe classic, say 50s, 60s Japanese movies, Japanese horror movies. Kobayashi comes to mind. I'm reminded a tiny bit of Coen here, especially with the sound design and the soundstage going on in the movie. All in all, this is a production. It's a Coen production, and it is great to look at, great to listen to. Fun to watch overall. Nothing wrong with this movie in general. It is definitely above average, and I think most people will find it to be. To pick on it a little bit, you know, the Coen brothers, they're known for humor and absurdity, and also for casting strange-looking faces in bit parts. You just think about Fargo, No Country for Old Men. Ballad of Buster Scruggs, one of my favorite Coen brothers movies, has everything in it you could want from Coen brothers. True Grit, for example, but this movie lacks humor and absurdity entirely. And of course, Joel Coen could have picked any number of Shakespeare plays. A great number of them have all kinds of, tones in them. Fool characters, jester characters, comic moments, for example. Even King Lear, my goodness, one of the bleakest Shakespeare plays, has a bit of humor in it and absurdity. That is not present in this Macbeth, which is, Joel Coen has made this as dark and as horror-like, I think, as Macbeth can get. That's all fine, but I didn't find enough variety and variation in tone in order to really enjoy this movie as much as I had previous Coen brother efforts. In fact, they're emphasizing doom and death. I think they veered towards nihilism or considering nihilism. They love the figure, the dark black figure on the horizon. It's in this movie 5 to maybe 10 times. As I've described in other videos, this has been part of their aesthetic in the last 15 years. They're interested in what does death mean, and they're veering towards gloom and doom, but you always find a little bit of hope in a Coen brothers movie, whether that's Inside Llewyn Davis or maybe True Grit. In this movie, though, man, of course with Macbeth, there's a lot of hope in the plot overall, but this movie could have gone that way, and well, I won't give away the end, but this is one of the darkest, maybe the darkest Coen brothers movie that there is. When I look back at the Coens over the last 20 years, I would say this is one of my least favorite of their movies. Now, of course, as I said, Ethan Coen's not working here, so maybe it's just Joel Coen. And maybe that's the element missing somehow. Maybe it's Ethan. I'm sure there'll be endless analyses on what Ethan brings to the Coen brothers duo. I don't know, because you can keep guessing as to what's missing here, what's lacking. But I think most people will get something out of this. Definitely the crowd who's interested in Shakespeare, studying Shakespeare. They're going to like this movie. It's an A24 movie, so it's very well done. I'm very happy this movie exists. I'm going to give it 3.5 stars. That's above average. That means I would rewatch it. But on my first watch here, I didn't like this as much as probably the last 5 or 6 Coen Brothers movies. Maybe that's unfair. The Coen Brothers pair and Joel Cohen, he is a good director, maybe great director. He's in, maybe the top 20 working directors. I have no doubt about it. And this movie shows that off. One final recommendation, watch Akira Kurosawa's Throne of Blood. There's a lot of energy in that movie. It's a great adaptation. So I shouldn't compare this movie to that, but I like Throne of Blood a lot. And I recommend that as the go-to MacBeth. After that, you go to Orson Welles. After that, maybe this movie. What do you think about the tragedy of Macbeth? Let us know in the comments, and please subscribe to this channel for more great content. Thanks. Have a great day.